If you're going to be unarmed in society, I think that the best thing that you can do is assist. Don't go look for a gunfight, right?
Right.
But I will say, if you've made the decision to carry, I hope that you get the amount of training it takes, and I hope you come to the mental uh, reality that someday you may have to use. A bad guy pulls out a gun, starts shooting, and a good guy pulls out a gun, starts shooting, and let's just say a third good guy, or second good guy turns around and just sees two people shooting. That's a tough spot. I think this country, it feels like it's in that holding, waiting for something bad to happen pattern.
In watching a lot of the Sean Ryan show and fanboying over him, um, the two biggest takeaways that I've taken from watching him over the years is like there are a lot of people that made it across the border that are not good actors. And he has that CIA gal on there that like tracked down bin Laden and such, and she talks about the different ways that they're going to start doing like domestic terrorism in the United States. And a lot of it they're talking about where it's going to be an initial push and there might be like an explosion or something like that. And then as first responders come in, then they start pulling out guns and harming them as active shooter situations, and that they're, fully ready to die, fully ready to sit down and just fight it out with guns. And being that you have so much training with like active shooters and you've trained so many people in active shooter situations, like what advice would you give to people if they're just unarmed civilians and something happens?
Unarmed civilians, buy a gun. But no,
Attaboy.
yeah, no, I would say protect your family first, protect yourself first, be a good witness, is the way I would say. Trust your spidey sense. If you're going to be unarmed in society, I think that the best thing that you can do is assist others. Just, run towards, I mean, when violence happens, the sheep are just going to run towards the door. Not to be rude or mean, but mass people just run towards exits. And I think people that have violence in their brain or violence in their heart, um, I think they know how the mass of society will work, and they know, hey, I'm just going to direct my violence towards the mass gathering right there. Um, I definitely think if you can arm yourself and you have that ability, you should. But for unarmed, I think your best bet is to grab as many people as you can and run towards a safe direction. If you can stomach it, or if you can get yourself, if you don't want to carry a firearm, please go find medical training. That way, when something bad happens, you can at least be there.
That's a
For
good
that side
point.
of it, I think I think you should owe it to those around you to have some type of training. Please just don't be that bump on the log that floats down the river.
So, for those of us that are armed, I mean, do you suggest, and obviously, don't put yourself in a situation where you're giving advice that would get somebody harmed. However, I mean, personally, I carry a pistol on my hip everywhere I go. I have an AR-15 in the back of the car or truck. I have a set of body armor. Like, I will make it home to my family.
One of the things that I'm always advocating out at my classes is a lot of people ask, they enjoy the scenario based discussions. And one of the things especially in our concealed carry class, because if you're making the decision to conceal carry, one, I'm hoping that you've made the decision in your mind that if something bad were to happen, that you're going to act. And one of the things they ask me is, oh, hey, let's say if you're at the mall or store, and a shooting happens, are you going to go and intervene? And I always have the same exact answer. Well, who am I with? If I'm with my daughters, they hold the mountain. They are my top priority. I'm grabbing them and we're getting to safety, and I don't care what's in my way. I'm getting them to safety. Now, if I'm out and about, let's say at the mall, and I don't have my daughters, and I hear shots and screaming, yes, I'm going to run towards that gunfire. I would rather have 5 people die than 10 people die, and I intervene. So again, and that's what I tell people. I said you have to have that decision. I won't fault you one way or the other if you carry a gun and you hear something happening and you do not run towards a gunfight. I'm not ever telling anybody to do something they're not comfortable, not skilled for, not trained for, and don't go look for a gunfight, right?
Right.
But I will say, if you've made the decision to carry, I hope that you get the amount of training it takes, and I hope you come to the mental uh, reality that someday you may have to use it, and get over that, because what you do again matters in a matter of seconds. And of course, protect yourself and your family first. I can understand it and I can respect that. I would protect my family first. Um, but again, I couldn't be the person that if something bad happens, I couldn't at least go try. And so that's what I will say for an active shooter. If something were to happen, who am I with? If I'm with my daughters, they're number one. I probably won't go back in at that point because, again, I have to make sure they're safe. But if I'm by myself, then absolutely I'm running towards those screams and those gunshots.
I get it. And it's just my concern being in that situation. I've done a ton of training as well. Like, I'm ready to go, right? However, my concern being is that in that situation, you're running towards an active shooter. Say, for example, myself, I got an AR pistol with a band on it, right? Or a brace rather. And I got body armor on and I'm running towards the violence. All of a sudden, first responders show up. What's to say they don't think I'm the active shooter?
Absolutely, and that's one of the things in the class that I also go over is you don't when the gunshots start ringing off, you're just going to look like a guy holding a gun. Um, if someone's calling 911 or if you're on phone with 911, hopefully you can give them a description. Um, I would hope that you can act as quick as possible and then kind of just maintain like a cover or conceal kind of position. Hopefully engage. Hopefully your training takes over. You can stop that threat, and then it's kind of a wait for the law enforcement to show up. They're usually pretty identifiable. They'll be come in screaming and yelling and lights, and they'll let you know who they are. That's a point definitely your weapon needs to be set down. But I can also understand in the heat of a moment, especially in this state, a lot of people carry guns.
Yeah.
I would hope that it doesn't happen, but in the heat of a moment, if a bad guy pulls out a gun, starts shooting, and a good guy pulls out a gun, starts shooting, and let's just say a third good guy, or a second good guy turns around and just sees two people shooting, that's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah.
That's a very tough spot to be in. So again, it's one of those things. It's do the best to your ability, the best to your training. So
Well, and that's a really big concern of mine right now. This type of attack, especially considering everything's popping off with Iran right now. And, you know, if there are sleeper cells in this country, they're probably going to want to be activating really soon. And, that prepper mindset for me is like fill up the gas cans, the jerry cans, start getting the bug out bags ready because you never know. And yet, in the same right, is like, but you also have to be vigilant everywhere that you go now. And that's kind of what we were talking about earlier when I was like, it was a different time. Like,
yeah,
pre 9/11, we weren't hyper vigilant constantly. And, obviously some things have happened in my life since then as well that have put me on a different path of, now being hyper vigilant and watching all the situations that I can. However, it's a crazy time to be alive, like I keep saying. And it's like, we have to now navigate our day to day. We have to navigate mental health. We have to navigate all of this. And for those of us that are trained, for those of us that, uphold a certain morality and sense of civil obligation, we're now also having to protect the team and be ready and stay ready for something that might happen. And it's a wild time right now. What advice do you have for anyone that's kind of in this headspace of like, we're not seeing a whole lot of active shooters that are sleeper cells that have been activated, but I hate to say it, I see that happening, and I see it happening soon.
I think this country, it feels like it's in that holding, waiting for something bad to happen pattern. It's the feeling that I get, unfortunately. I think the state of it is, again, there's so much going on everywhere that I think like you said, it's kind of just awaiting for an example to be set here in the States. And you had touched on earlier the mental side of things. It seems nowadays when someone is prepared or ready or have mentally set themselves up, I despise this phrase, the toxic masculinity. I despise that when something is masculine or prepared or ready to handle anything that comes to your front door, it's looked at as negative or bad. And so I would hope that that doesn't stop someone from trying to prepare themselves to the best of their ability. Is, well, I don't want to be viewed at as a gun nut or toxic, masculinity or too alpha or anything like that. Because I think nowadays it's frowned upon, and I don't think that's correct.
And see, I'll every time I will counter that comment about toxic masculinity by saying something along the lines of toxic masculinity is the polar opposite of masculinity. The be quiet and carry a big stick. I've quoted it before. Mad Dog Mattis saying, like, be kind, be professional, and have a plan to kill everybody in the room. That's how a man should be, in my opinion. And I went to an event. I was talking to somebody who's a podcaster as well, and she had a friend with her. And when she asked me, what's your podcast about? I said, well, it's about, healthy masculinity and just, how to be a man, how to practice stoicism and so on. And her friend, obviously militant, goes, healthy masculinity. Well, that's an oxymoron. And the moment that I gave her that response, she just, and kind of wandered off, right? But the friend that she was with sat and talked with me for like another 20 minutes. And you could tell that the other guy was super pissed about it. Haha. But there is not toxic masculinity. And I think that there is something in being ready, being calm, being stoic, that is 100% characterized by masculinity. After being delicate with, who you have to be delicate with, also able to shut that off and go dull, no emotion, and just be able to tactically handle what you have to handle without concern. You're just looking at things slowing down and you're making moves that need to be made.
Absolutely.
That's masculinity. Not being fearful, not being scared. I mean, you have that in your answer when you were talking about, well, it depends on who I'm with, right? You're still capable of holding your priorities. I'm with my daughters. No, I'm dad. Dad's number one, purpose is to protect kids. Let's get them to safety. Sorry, world, someone else has to handle this situation.
Yes.
Right? And that's masculinity. You're probably not in that situation going to go, oh, you think you're going to challenge me? And go running, naked in a battle cry at somebody. But,
Depends on the day of the week. But
yeah, I mean, speak for yourself, Eddie.
Yeah.
Some of us might.
Is it 5, get freaky?
Right.
Yeah.
Is it Tactical Kilt Tuesday?
Might be. I really like your take on if it's toxic, it isn't masculine.
Well, and it's important to understand that, because we should not be being vilified as men for being inherently who we're supposed to be. And again, I get the concept of shouting you're an alpha male and then taking shots of whiskey till you piss your pants and, being a bad boy. Like, there's a reason it's called bad boy. You haven't learned to be a man yet.
I can tell you, with the amount of time I've had in mixed martial arts, trained with all these guys for many, many years, when we would go out in the early days and we would watch the UFC at typically these sports bars, I will tell you that the group that I went with were probably some of the quietest men in that entire place.
Yeah.
We didn't have to peacock. We didn't have to show. We'd all trained together. We knew exactly what we were doing. We knew how to. Every one of us knew how to handle ourselves in every way you could think about, right? And then you'd get the guys at the bar that are shouting and screaming and trying to show off and do all these things and try to be the loudest guy in that room, as where the guys that knew how to fight very, very well would just sit back, smile, and okay, well, if something happens, I'll take care of it. But until it happens, I'm just going to be absolutely calm. And I admired that. I admired being the calmest guy in the room until something happened.
That is about masculinity, is being prepared to face whatever is going to come your way and get the upper hand on it, handle it, and then go about the rest of your day.
Absolutely.
There is no toxic masculinity. I'm sure you've probably heard people talking about peptides. It piqued your interest, you looked into it, but you don't know what source to trust. A lot of this stuff is coming out of China. If you're looking for a good quality peptide that's made in the United States, go to helixpure.com.